Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers. We are all here. This is a rarity.
Yeah.
We are at the Saucony 10K for a big race test. What have we got that we're going to be testing, boys?
I've got the Endorphin Elite 2s on. I'll be using the speed. I've got a 10K before and after race. I'm doing in the Speed 5, racing in the Elite 2, and I'm going to test the Garmin Venu X1 versus the Garmin Forerunner 970 to look at the GPS on the Venu.
What are you going for? You just cruising?
I don't really know. I try to run mad.
Nick never cruises.
I'm going to run hard. It's a session. It's a long session. Maybe 33, 34.
Okay, Tom, what have you got?
I am using the Saucony London Speed 5s, which should be interesting. I don't think I think the last speed I raced in was the 2s, so it should be an interesting test for them today. I'm not very fit at the moment, so not expecting any major PBs or anything. Probably just cruising today. Probably just cruising, and I've also got the Shokz OpenFit 2 Plus on as well.
Mike, what about yourself?
I am definitely cruising. I've got the Speed 5 as well. I think I've only raced the Speed 2 as well. Then watch-wise, I've got the Garmin Venu X1 and Apple Watch Ultra 2, so kind of looking at how the GPS is going to perform in going to be tough GPS conditions. So
Very twisty.
Yeah, so that's what I've got.
And then I have got the Elites on as well. Looking forward to testing these out on a kind of twisty, turny course. I've got two Garmin's on. I've got the 970 and the 570. I've got a Nix kind of hydration sensor as well, which I'm going to take a little look at.
Will it stay on?
Will it stay on? Mike has tested this last year, so we're interested to see what the updates have brought. I'm just going to go and try and run all out and see what I get. Anyway, we're about to start, so we better get ourselves into the pen. We'll see you on the other side. Saucony 10K done. It was pretty humid out there, fairly hot. I think I've got around in 37 something. I might have pipped under 37, which would be amazing if I did. I have run my heart out. Dug in. Saucony Endorphin Elite 2 did an absolutely cracking job on the course. Actually on the twists and turns they weren't too bad. And they were just giving me energy the whole way. This is a proper lively, aggressive shoe. And I needed something out there today, and it gave me that kind of big bounce when you control it, and I'm punching at my fastest pace. I mean, that's close to my half 5K pace, and it was just great up there. It's still a bit wobbly. I still wouldn't recommend it for everyone, but boy, did it give me what I needed out there today. The watches will do the test later on. My Nix sensor, I'm going to see how much I lost. My little nose strip that I was wearing to clear my airways fell off, but we're all good.
So into that run test, and the shoe I was testing was the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5. Now when I did the Saucony London 10K last year, I was using the Endorphin Pro 4. I do really like that shoe, but I think from a kind of 10K pace, 10K distance, I think it's best utilised for longer runs, marathon pace runs, using it for the marathon. I think the Endorphin Speed 5 definitely was a better fit in kind of this distance and the kind of pace that I was running. Now I did 45.04 I think, so not my quickest, not a PB, not even close to a PB, but I haven't raced since March because of injury. I've just been coming back and kind of considering going out and racing and running a little bit faster. Not quite up to my 10K pace yet, but in terms of kind of hovering around that kind of pace, I felt like the Speed 5 worked really well. I like the fact you're still getting some liveliness there, there's some nice bounce there. I think, you know, the key ingredient in the Endorphin range that I really like, I think it really separates from other shoes, is that kind of speed roll geometry and really kind of rolls you very nicely, very rapidly. But I never felt like it was overly aggressive in that running time. I think if I was in the Elite 2, I think maybe I would have had, you know, a touch, you know, it would have been too aggressive for me for that distance and where I'm at with my running at the moment. But I think with the Speed 5, it gave me some of that, but not too much. And I still felt like I could pick the pace up in this shoe and not feel like I was, you know, I felt like it was working with me at those kind of, you know, quicker paces, or kind of getting up to my kind of quicker kind of speeds in that race. From a kind of stability point of view, it felt pretty good. Kind of cornering, I did have to go a little bit wider. It's quite a twisty, turny course, but in general, you know, I didn't feel like I was kind of, that was an issue to kind of take those corners in a relatively kind of smooth and kind of stable fashion. So yeah, really good experience in the Speed 5. As I said, I think, you know, this is a better fit for this distance and my kind of paces compared to the Endorphin Pro 4, which I don't think is really a 10k distance shoe, but I think, you know, in terms of what I'm seeing in the Speed 5, I've really liked in my kind of previous runs leading up to the race, and I think come kind of race day today, I really enjoyed it. Kind of really delivered what I wanted from it without feeling too overly aggressive, allowing me to ease off and put the brakes on a little bit in places when I want to and not feel too kind of awkward to do that. And yeah, just had an enjoyable time running in the Speed 5. So the other thing I was testing was how the Garmin Venu X1 smartwatch compares to the Apple Watch Ultra 2, a Garmin watch that is definitely pitched against the Apple Watch Ultra 2 from a price point of view and the design and being a square smartwatch. So I was mainly looking at the GPS performance, because in a race like this in the heart of London, it does kind of wreak havoc on your GPS. So that's something I was really looking at. I was also looking at the battery life drop off for that kind of 10k distance run as well. Heart rate tracking, I'm going to reserve our comparison kind of video that we're going to do on the channel at a later date, so keep a lookout for that. Now, from a GPS point of view, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 actually performed better in my testing. It was a lot closer to the lap markers and came to the end of the race and that kind of overall distance. It was just a little bit closer to that 10k distance. Battery life, though, the Garmin Venu X1 performed a little bit better. Had them at kind of 98% at the start of the race. There was a bigger drop from the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that the Venu X1 doesn't have a multi-band, dual-band GPS mode. The Apple Watch Ultra 2 does, and that clearly does drain the battery life a little bit quicker. Had them both in always-on display modes as well, so the Garmin performed a little bit better on that front, but when it came from that kind of GPS kind of performance, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 definitely did shade it. So yeah, more testing to go for our kind of multi-tester review, which is coming up for the Venu X1. As I said, we will be doing a comparison video of both these smartwatches if you are interested in how these two perform day to day and over a longer period of running.
Okay, so brief recap from me on the Saucony London 10K. I've done this race quite a few times now. I think I did it way back in 2010 when the t-shirt was like a Union Jack design. And I don't think I've ever had a really successful race at the London 10K. I think it's just where it sits in a year. It's quite often hot, and the course is actually quite tricky for a PB, although Kieran's time today would probably suggest otherwise. I really like the race. It's nice to do a 10K in central London. Obviously, everyone wants to do London Marathon, but doing a 10K is obviously more accessible to a lot of people, and it's a really nice event. There's loads of crowds. It's well organised. There's a nice music and atmosphere going on all the time. It's a really nice event, and I like doing it whenever I get the opportunity. My experience of the race today. So I've not really been doing a lot of speed work recently. I've been doing more comfortable runs over the past couple of months. So I wasn't expecting a lot from today. I ended up with a 40.46, which is way off my PB, but I don't think it's that far. I think it might be the fastest I've done on that course. But 40.46, which is about 3 minutes off my PB, but not unexpected based on the training that I've been doing. I've got quite a few more races coming up over the next few months, so hopefully I'm going to be able to get that nearer to my comfortable time that I like to get around in that 38-minute mark. But I'm way off it at the moment with that time. But all in all, really impressive event. Really enjoyed it. Nice medal. Nice to see loads of people there. I spoke to quite a lot of people, and if you came over and said hello, then it was nice to meet you and hope you did well. The kit that I used the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5s. Now, it's been a long time since I've used the Speeds for a race. I think I used them, probably the second version of them for a race. And I was really impressed with them, but I've never really picked them up for a race since, because it is a great shoe. It's a solid all-round shoe. It feels fast, feels nice and stable, feels like you can pick up the pace nicely in it. The only thing I'd say about it is that you notice it's not the same as a carbon plate race shoe that has like an aggressive feel. It has a bouncy super foam in it. And I did notice that in the race. I probably would have knocked off a few seconds if I was wearing one of my favourite shoes like the Alpha Fly or something like that. But it is a very, very good shoe. Definitely a shoe that I think is one of the best ones out there for training. It's very accessible. You can really pick up the pace nicely in it, and it feels very natural on the feet. It doesn't feel very aggressive, but it's got a nice little bit of kick in it as well. So solid test for the Speed 5 today. Don't think I'll be using it for a race again if I'm going for a PB. I think I'll go from one of my carbon plate shoes, but I think it's nice to test these fast training shoes out to see how good they do actually perform on a race, and it's still a fantastic shoe. And very similar to the earlier versions of the shoe. Not a lot has changed in this, but really big thumbs up for the Speed 5. The only thing I was testing today, which I've been using quite a lot recently, is Shokz OpenFit 2 Plus. I absolutely love these. So I am a big user of bone conduction headphones, or Shokz bone conduction headphones. And I didn't really use the original version of these very much because I didn't think the sound was quite as good as I wanted. So, but these I've been using for all of my runs basically. Really like them. You can barely feel them on your head. They're really comfortable to wear. Sound is fantastic. It's nice and loud. I mean, today it was very loud at certain points, so you can't hear it because it's open ear in certain areas. But from the majority, absolutely fantastic. And when I'm out on the run, normally I listen to podcasts with these, and it's absolutely fine. Only thing I would say about them, which is a bit of a weird thing to say about them, but the thing I find with these is that when they're on my ears and it's really hot and sweaty, all the sweat drips into my ears, which you don't get with in-ear headphones because obviously the sweat's not dripping into them because they're basically plugged up. But these ones, I do find I get a lot of sweat in my ears, but it's not a major issue. You'd probably expect that, and I'm quite a sweaty man anyway. So that's my quick update from the Saucony London 10K. Big thanks to Saucony for inviting me down.
So it's the day after the Saucony London 10K, got my medal there. It was a successful morning out in the city for me. I did a big marathon training session actually. I did 10K before the race at 3:45 a K. The race went very well. I came in at 32:57, which was surprisingly quick for me. Anytime I break 33 is a pleasant surprise unless I'm really going for a 10K. So yeah, I was pleased with that time for sure. And then I ran the 10K afterward the race at 4 minutes a K pace. So lots of miles done. Did the 10K before and after the race in the Endorphin Speed, and then the race itself in the Endorphin Elite 2. So the whole extended session went well, but the race in particular was really good. Like, the London 10K is not the quickest course. There are a lot of about turns, and the organisation is not the best. Like, I mean, the waves, I was in the same wave. Like, I was standing next to the 40-minute pacer at the start line and also like a female elite. So it's just the range of times there is a bit too big, I think, like going out a 32-minute pace and then people going out at a 40-minute pace. It just meant it was really crowded in the first kilometre. And in general, I was overtaking people for quite a lot of the race, which I didn't mind because it wasn't a big goal race for me, and I still ran a time I was really happy with. But maybe if you were like really going all out for a PB, it might be a bit frustrating to be caught in those kind of crowds at the start of the race. But it's a fairly quick course. It is well organised. You're right in the centre of London, which is obviously very fun. Lots of people cheering, nice weather. So yeah, it's a pretty good experience all round. But do think they could use maybe a couple more start waves to divide people up a little more. So yeah, good event, and it's a good shoe, the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2. So it's not one I've used a lot, partly because the size is a little small, so I did have to like take my toes up to make sure I could use it for the race and not get too much rubbing, and then obviously went back to the Speed afterwards. Also, it's just not my favourite ride feel because it is really soft. It is really bouncy. It springs back really well. It's very fast. I felt like I could really run fast in it for sure in the race itself, but it's maybe just a fraction soft for my taste. Said there were a lot of sharp turns in that course, and I was able to go around them in the shoe pretty well. And when I was on the more even straight bit in the second half of the race along the embankment, you could get into a really nice rhythm with it. And it's it's pretty lightweight. It's got lots of very winning features to it, and it is a little bit softer than lots of carbon shoes, and some people might like that. It's super squishy underfoot. It's going to be really comfortable as long as you don't have to worry too much about the instability or anything like that. So yeah, a very fast shoe. Yeah, a good shoe around. It's not my top pick for like goal races still. I still prefer things like the Puma Fast R3, the Asics Metaspeed at Tokyo, but a really good shoe, and I performed at my absolute best pretty much in that race, so you can't argue with, I think, the way it delivers on the run. It's also a lot softer than the Endorphin Speed 5, which was great, in those sections before and after the race. Such a good fast training shoe, the Endorphin Speed 5, but it is now very different to Saucony's top race. In the past, we had the Speed and the Pro, and they were different. The Pro was better, but it was not too big a difference between them. But now the Endorphin Elite 2 is quite a different experience for sure to the Endorphin Speed 5, but and gives you an upgraded race experience in terms of lightness and bounce and propulsion. And then on the wrist, I had the Garmin Venu X1 and the Garmin Forerunner 970, which I think are pretty much my two favourite sport watches out there. I like them both a little bit more than the Phoenix because they're lighter, slimmer, especially the Venu X1, which has surprised me in how much I like it. I didn't expect to like it that much actually. For the last week or so, I had the Forerunner 970 and the Phoenix 8 on for a side-by-side test, and I was actually missing the Venu X1 because it is so lightweight and thin, especially in the hot weather we've had here in the UK. It's a very comfortable watch to wear. One feature missing compared to the Forerunner 970, the Venu X1 is a fully laden sports watch. Has all of Garmin's best features apart from dual band GPS. It just has all systems GPS tracking, so I wanted to put them directly up against each other in the race to see if that did make a difference, because Garmin's All Systems GPS tracking is very accurate, and for the most part, in all the time I've been testing the Venu X1, it's been exactly the same as watches like the Fenix 8, the Forerunner 970, the Apple Watch Ultra 2, all of which have dual band tracking. But that's been out here on the fringes of London or in the countryside. In a city centre race, dual band GPS could well make a difference under those tall buildings, and that is exactly what did happen, I found, during the race. Like, it's a really hard race with all those sharp turns, in the centre of London. Both watches ran a little bit long, but the Forerunner 970 was closer to the overall distance. And you certainly see on the GPS track sections where the Venu X1 has gone a bit wild and swerved off the road, where the Forerunner 970 hasn't at all. It's stuck to exactly the right path. And I noticed in the race in particular, going around Temple Station, that the pacing suddenly seemed really fast on the Venu X1 for that lap pace split, and it was inaccurately fast. It basically had just gone wider, added a bit of distance, so the pace obviously increased. Forerunner 970 was much more stable and reliable. So it's not a huge difference. Overall, it was fine. The pacing on the Venu X1, you can certainly use. It's a very good GPS tracker, but if you're someone who runs in the city a lot in particular, I think the dual band GPS is a noticeable upgrade. I didn't look at the heart rate of either of the watches because I had them both paired to the HRM 600 chest strap to get those running economy stats still filtering in. But I did look at the battery life, and that is another area obviously where the Venu X1 comes up short compared to the Forerunner 970. Both watches actually were bang in line with Garmin's listed stats. So Garmin says that the Venu X1 will give you 14 hours of GPS tracking in all systems on mode, and the Forerunner 970 will give you 21 hours of tracking in multi-band mode. And they're both trained at exactly that rate, pretty much, looking at the stats from the DCR Rainmaker analyzer. You're gonna lose a lot more battery, and it's the GPS activities that really hit the Venu X1 hard. Like with general use, it does last 2 days pretty comfortably for me with the screen always on, and if you have the screen set to race to wake, it will last a lot longer, but GPS activities really do hit it hard. So I did about 20 miles of running in total on Sunday, and I think that knocked off about 20% of the battery life alone during those workouts, because those do hit them hard. So if you're someone like a triathlete, especially like doing long bike rides or something like that, you're gonna go through the Venu X1 batteries pretty quickly. Forerunner 970 has a bit of an edge on that front. And then the other advantage, obviously, there's dual band GPS, the slightly lower price, and the 5-button design. So with the Venu X1, during races and all those sessions, you have to use the touchscreen to kind of navigate your data screens. And for the most part, that's fine, even with sweaty fingers, but occasionally it leads to the odd error, especially like if you pause the watch, you have to be quite careful not to accidentally save the run rather than resuming it if you want to carry on. So there are a few little edges to the Forerunner 970 for sure, but the Venu X1 does have a fantastic design, and that might swing a few people its way if you are, because it is still a very good sports watch. Just got to bear in mind the things that we saw on race day, the shorter battery life, no dual band GPS. But overall, very fun day out in London, very pleased with my time. Really enjoyed seeing Tom, Mike and Kieran and getting to race with all of them for the first time in a while, even though I wasn't able to hang out with them much before and after the race because of this stupid long session. But yeah, good day out in London and plenty of good testing done.
So it's the day after the Saucony 10K, and I am still one very happy runner. I took a minute off my 10K PB, a minute or so, running 36:49 out there on what is a pretty twisty and turny course. Now, when it comes to the Saucony 10K, I think what you're getting here is pretty much the standard experience for a central London race. It's not unlike some of the other ones like the Winter Run and the London Landmarks. Those, it's busy, there's bustle, the start is going to be frantic. But overall, I found it pretty well organised. There's good signage to get you to things like the starting pens and to the bag drop. I thought we did have to, one thing was we had to walk quite a long way around to get from the bag drop to pen B where I started, and that seemed to take longer than, I think that should have been explained a bit. The start line as well, I thought was a bit tame. It lacked a bit of atmosphere. We had an influencer blathering on in those final 3 minutes before the gun went. I really wanted a bit more sort of music, a bit more atmosphere kicked up. But when we got moving, I think the start was busy. It's what you'd expect from a central London race. It's jostling elbows out. It probably settled down around a mile, and all things considered, I think that probably kept me honest in the first mile. Though if you're really gunning for it, you're probably going to want to be up the front of each of those pens. Now, the route is pretty twisty. It's mainly flat. There's a couple of welcome downhills in the first half where you feel like you're logging a bit of distance for free. That was quite nice. Overall, I didn't think it was as well supported maybe as some of the big London races. But I was lucky enough to be crossing Westminster Bridge towards the House of Parliament when Big Ben chimed. I was really hurting at that point with about a K or so to go. But it was a proper goosebumps moment, and it sort of definitely gave me a few more beans to get the job done and to hang on. Just enjoy that experience of being sort of in the centre of London at that time. You get a nice medal for it. I thought the goodie bag was pretty good. My extra small men's tee, though, is definitely more like a medium. These days I tend to pick up the extra smalls, trying to get them for my 10-year-old son. I reckon he's going to have to be about 18, though, before that one fits. Onto the shoes, and I ran in the Endorphin Elite 2, my first proper guns blazing race test in that shoe. And I have to say, it was absolutely ace out there. You're going to say that when you run a PB, but I was worried about how wild the super soft, super bouncy midsole would be, or how it would handle those sort of many U-turns in the twisty turny course. I definitely had to concentrate and ease off when I was doing the proper U-turns to stay in control. But when you get on the bits where you're running in a straight line on even flat tarmac and you're really up mid to forefoot with a really attacking, aggressive sort of race form, that Elite 2 just gave me everything that I needed. I was really waiting for my legs to fall off deep into that race. I didn't think I was going to be able to hold the pace, but I just kept ticking the miles at sub 6 pace and the legs felt fresh. I was still getting back what I needed. What surprised me most as well was how fresh my legs still felt yesterday afternoon. I could have happily gone out and run again. I didn't, but I could have. They're still in pretty good shape today as well. I don't feel like I've got that sort of really sort of tight calves, battered quads that you might get if you've gone and run a hard race like that. None of that. I still think the Elite 2 is quite a unique ride that not everyone will get on with, and I still think there are carbon races that I'd rather be wearing at mile 20 of a marathon or a longer distance run if the wheels would come off, because it is very, very soft. But over this distance, running my best attacking form, the Elite 2 served up everything that I wanted. Big energy, bounce, good race fit comfort, and it was an absolute blast. A lot of fun punching my way around the course in those shoes. So it was a big tick on the Endorphin Elite 2 for me. I really enjoyed them for that distance, feeling that fit and doing that job. So I've been busy testing the Forerunner 570 and the 970 from Garmin side by side. I've done various races, including the Comrades, other bits and pieces. I will have a head-to-head video on the channel soon about those. But yesterday was another good opportunity to test the GPS in what is a built-up urban environment. I had both watches in their max accuracy all systems dual frequency modes, and they both clocked the course really surprisingly well for total distance. At least the Forerunner 970 clocked 10.28 kilometers, the 570 clocked 10.14 kilometers. The real-time pacing was a close match for both throughout when I was looking at them. Now I run in miles, not kilometers, so I couldn't check the exact race markers against the GPS, but I was hitting the key kilometer markers 3k, 5k, 8k, where I could do the sums pretty closely. And when you dig into the GPS tracks, what you'll find here is that both watches struggle a bit to pin you to the exact route, but provided you're getting the overall distance and that pace in real time close, it's not too much of a problem what the tracks say. So I'd say there's good performance from both in what is an urban race, lots of switchbacks, built up environment. I was impressed by that. When it comes to battery life, interestingly, the race burn rate for the half an hour that I was running, 30, nearly 40 minutes, was exactly the same, 4.5% per hour. By the time I was on the train home, though, around 11 a.m, having taken both of them off charge before bed the night before, the 970 had burned 7%, the 570 had burned 9%. Then on heart rate, I put them up against the HRM 600 for Garmin. Again, impressed by the performance here. They both matched that really well. They were rarely more than 2 to 3 beats out at any point during the race. So for that race test, these two have performed really well. It's a really solid performance from both Garmin's new Forerunners. Now, I also tested the Nix Hydration Sensor, which I've still got on here. This patch here aims to track fluid and electrolyte loss, including sodium. I don't have anything to sort of directly compare it to for accuracy from the race, but when I was tested most recently by Precision Fuel and Hydration, their team, when they did the sweat test, they had me at 635 milligrams per litre of sweat for sodium loss. Then on yesterday's 10k, the Nix said I lost 899 millilitres of fluid, 721 milligrams of electrolytes, 342 milligrams of sodium. That would roughly equate to 380 milligrams of sodium per litre. Now, it was hot and humid out there. I finished the race with an absolutely drenched shirt, so I feel like I lost a decent amount of fluid. Garmin's estimate put me at 615 millilitres of fluid loss. Again, there's not too much to choose between them. This was my first use of Nix in the wild, and from what I've seen so far, what I'm most interested in is the app seems sort of nicely straightforward. And that data, if it's anywhere near accurate, I think could be genuinely useful. But I'm viewing this through the lens of my upcoming Berlin 100 miler, where I will definitely struggle with fluids and fluid balance, salt balance after 15 hours of running. It's something that I've had the last few times of doing it. Now, Nix will give you real-time alerts to say you've lost a certain amount of fluid, but it could also really just help me see what's going on. So I'm intrigued by this race test I've just done. It's piqued my interest even more to see if this is something that might help me when I go to the streets of Berlin, though I am less interested, or I am less kind of sold by the fact that each sensor only lasts 36 hours and they are not cheap. So there you have it. That was our race test at the Saucony London 10k. A rarity to have all 4 run testers in one place at one time. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you enjoyed looking at the stuff that we tested and found it useful. maybe some inspiration for stuff that you might want to go out and try out yourself. If you've used any of that kit, hit us up in the comments below. Let us know how you got on with it. If you raced yesterday as well, tell us how you got on out there. We'd love to hear it in the Saucony London 10K or elsewhere. It's always interesting to hear how you guys get on in your stuff. But until next time, happy running, people.